Welcome to the show, everybody. ISO buddies. Everybody's? Whatever. We'll work on that. Probably not. So tonight, first off, hopefully there was no miscommunication, and we're going to talk to Tanner Stainbrook next week about taking amazing photographs of your animals, even your tiny ones. So the guy takes literally some of the best photographs I've ever seen, period. And I'm jaded because they are, a lot of them are about isopods. So I'm jaded a little bit. I want to try to get his thoughts on taking pictures of ants because ants are very fast. It's hard to take a picture. Anyway, let's talk about our guest that we actually have tonight. So we have a fill-in because we were going to talk to, I'm not upset about that at all. So thankfully, Morris Williamson had the grace to talk to us today. To kind of come to my rescue because we had Brittany from the Isopod Chick, but she's going through some stuff. So think good thoughts for her. Okay. But yeah, obviously this show is not a priority for anyone but me. So who we're interviewing today is Morris Williamson from Permian Exotics. I know he's known for his substrate or dirt, but we're going to talk to him about conservation today. He's literally one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And that's saying a lot. Like I'm going to humble brag. I know a lot of smart people that make me feel really dumb, and I don't normally feel dumb. So, and Morris is a top 5. So, let's bring him on without further ado-dos. Morris, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Geez, way to really stoke the fires of that introduction. I don't know how I'm ever going to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Russ is smarter than you, Russ Wilson, but I feel like his knowledge is more specific. I haven't talked to him about other topics, but we're gonna talk about conservation and biology, whereas you know like a crap load about history and the ladies apparently, and sunshine and probably some planetary stuff, possibly geology. Geology too, right? Chemistry.
Yeah, geology, geochem, bio, evolutionary theory. Man, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. What can I say?
I feel like you're probably a master of a couple. So I say that no joking at all. So your brother's here today, Henry?
Yeah, Henry.
Yeah?
He's in the chat. He's gonna say some stuff, man. It's probably true.
So far, it's decent. So he's talking about conservation. So I wanted to start out tackling a topic. So those of you that are used to our format that have been here we've been here forever. Like this is our 6th episode or something. We normally have a format where we ask questions, and they're pretty much the same questions across the board, and then we tap into this person's specialty. We're not going to do that tonight. We're just going to have a conversation because Morris and I are not just Facebook friends, I don't think, anymore. I would consider him an actual friend. So that's coming from me. That's coming from this heart. All right, buddy?
Yeah, dude. I would absolutely cook a steak for you.
Wow. All right. I appreciate that. That's a Texas steak, too. That's not a normal steak, people. That is a Texas steak. Morris was literally conceived on a grill. So that's awesome. Your brother said that. I don't even know. He private messaged me. It was crazy. So he wasn't there, I don't think, but that's the case.
No, he wasn't because I'm the oldest.
So Morris and I and a couple other people have talked about this in the past or touched on it in the past. So Morris, there's a real threat that we have these isopods in the isopod community and other insects too, but I think we'll focus on isopods for now. But we're catching them and selling them and breeding them and distributing them before they're even classified officially, scientifically. So there are species that we don't even know. Like I heard rubber duckies aren't even Cubaris now. They're supposed to be like Marinella.
I think duckies are probably Cubaris, but there's a couple of others I think, like the silver ghosts that are Neodillo. Don't quote me on that, guys. My isopod taxonomy is not really the best, but yeah, there's And it doesn't help either that I think there are only like 2 or 3 people in the world that do isopod biology seriously,
I think we
especially
talked about this before. We verified there's 2 guys, and they're like 80 years old.
yeah.
So
So it's tough, especially with an animal like this, an animal that's newly coming on to the pet scene, right? It's like back in the day when ball python morphs first started coming out, and there was this huge explosion in people buying and breeding ball pythons, and it led to the creation of all of these beautiful phenotypes that exist. And unfortunately, with isopods, we're finding new species that sort of hit those same that check those same boxes off in looking cool and different and beautiful. And instead of breeding them in our garage or in our house, we're finding them in caves, in jungles, around the world.
yeah,
And it could very easily become a problem for wild populations. Um, Especially if people get too greedy. But I think the one thing that isopods have going for them is they're very, very much fecund, right? So they breed well in captivity and in the wild, and so it's that's sort of their saving grace. They're very R selected.
right. And they're tough, but I worry that we're going to over collect some of them. Now the people are looking for them, because the people that are in some of these areas are generally poorer communities. The people that are out there looking for these guys and harvesting. So if they're getting top dollar, or for them top dollar, like, this could be almost an easy thing to over harvest. Like, let's say the tricolors. Like, I imagine they're easy to find because they stand out so much.
Yeah.
And they're my personal all-time favorite. Like, I can't wait to have them when they're less than $100 a bug. So,
Yeah, they are not easy on the pocketbook.
yeah, I can't justify that unless I sell like half my collection and then still have $250 left for a 6-pack or a 5-pack or whatever.
Right.
I don't think I'll ever have those, but unless they breed like crazy, unless they're like Panda Kings.
And they probably don't, because they're Marillanella. Marillanella, from in my experience, and I've just got dreams. I
Yeah.
love those, but they mature slowly and they breed slowly, but they reach breeding age fairly small.
Well, like most isopods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll start off with, I think I started with 10. Now I've got, I don't know, a couple hundred.
Wow. Well, so you could put a down payment on a good car with that collection right there, if you could sell it for
If I could sell them for
market value,
which I haven't been able to do. So
right. I feel like everybody in the hobby is a breeder and doesn't want to pay retail prices. So,
well, and that's the thing too. These guys are so easy to breed that you might as well call yourself a breeder, because
yeah.
if you've got 5 and a mixture of male and females, guess what? You're going to have more in a couple of months.
Oh, speaking of which, shout out to Josh Kane. I have my own baby Klugai, Montenegro. So finally, that was my last hurdle in my collection to breed. So very excited. Very excited. Everyone else, they're super easy. Oh, hey, Rick. Rick from Ophi Spider-Verse just came on. Everyone else has hundreds and hundreds of them, and mine just kept dying off. So I don't know. Josh sent me 50, I think. So they're taken off already. So out of 50, I at least have one female in there. But back to the topic. We're already on a tangent. So I worry that we're going to get, like, your dreams in particular, they're not even scientifically classified, right?
No, there's still. You go to most sites and they'll say Isopoda species dream or
Yeah.
Cubaris species shrub, and they don't even look like a Cubaris, you know. But
Right.
and again, like I said, I'm not a taxonomist. My isopod taxonomy is not expert level. They don't look like a Cubaris. They look like a Marillanella to me. But
Right.
you know, that's
But you're not trained to classify them. But I'm just saying, no disrespect, but I'm just saying, like, we make these educated guesses,
yeah,
but we don't know. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, unless you're one of those 80-year-old dudes with a
Yeah.
lab, we're
Yeah.
not. We're just working off of observation, right? We're
Right.
not able to do molecular studies on their genetics and say with confidence that, oh yeah, this is part of this genus or that genus. We have no idea other than what we can see with our own eyes as hobbyists.
Right. Or like a electron microscope or
Yep.
something like that. Because I don't know. Like at armadillidium, I couldn't tell you the sexing unless they have a full pouch of babies. I don't know. Or the ones on top, then I know for sure.
Right. A little nurture
Um,
pride.
and are they just stupid, or is this part of their breeding where the male connects his hind end to the top of her head? Or that's not how they breed, right? Because I know centipedes or millipedes, their genitalia is way not where I thought it would be.
Um, I think you just had one male that was a little friskier than most.
I mean, I've
Just
seen it a lot, and I've been super confused. Like, wait a minute, this isn't right, you guys. Come on, you're into some weird stuff. For those of you that don't know, millipedes, when they lock together, it's right about here. If they were human, this would be their gonads. I know this kind of looks like a ball sack here, but it's not, I promise. Um, I think that just got us demonetized. Um, but
no,
yeah, they'll
it's all
stick
meant
together
to be.
here, and there's this like white meat that comes out of both of them. And I was terrified when I first saw it. I thought they were eating each other or something. I didn't know. So I had to have Rachel from Pet Peds and Pods like just or verify that no.
Yeah, the
Stop pulling them apart. That's breeding. What was that?
seventh body segment. That's where their junk is.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out because the males are missing that set of legs. The people say, oh, they're missing that leg. That's the easy way.
Yeah.
No, it's not the easy way. Like they're constantly moving those legs. You have no idea unless they stand perfectly still. But even millipedes, like millipedes or pill millipedes, all that stuff, like people want them. We have so many irresponsible keepers, and the people that are harvesting them, they don't care because they're making however much they're making per one. You know, like I'm not making things up, right? These are a lot of these things are from like poorer communities that would harvest them for what's good money there.
Well, and we say that, but that's very
Subjective,
much
yeah.
through the lens of a Western Eastern dichotomy, right? So like
Yeah.
we're talking about countries like Thailand,
Yeah.
Vietnam, and yeah, there are rural areas in those countries, those nations, which have people that live in lower socioeconomic ways, and yeah, going out and finding roly polies is a easy way to put money on the table, which gets into the whole theme, right? Um, we look at sort of the extinction events that are happening to megafauna in Africa,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is driven by money coming in from, and this time it's not the West, right? It's not coming in from America, Canada, Australia. It's coming in from China because rhino horn and lion fur is all part of traditional medicine, and so you're ending up with a lot of over hunting and poaching, just right out poaching, happening
Yeah.
because you know this rhino's horn sells for $350 a gram. I don't know if that's what it costs. I don't.
Well, it's an insane amount of money from what I understand. So to the point that like conservationists now, like the guys out there, the wildlife guys, are darting the rhinos, cutting their horns off for them, like while they're under sedation. So they're not going to be attractive to poachers. Poachers don't. There's no point in killing them.
Exactly.
But then does that affect their breeding? Like I know that the males with the bigger horns are more successful breeders. So is it? I think that's something they can adjust.
Well, it's a cool little study that you mentioned because you look at African elephants, right?
Yeah.
And there is a trend in bull elephants having smaller tusks. And
I saw that too. Yeah.
of course, this is a result of poachers coming in and killing males with these big, large tusks so they can sell it to the highest bidder. And evolution, and this is kind of now, this would be an interesting study. Is it evolution or is it selective breeding? Right?
I think they go hand in hand, right? So, like if the males with the bigger tusks aren't around, that gives the smaller tusk males an opportunity to breed.
Right.
So
and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, right? Because obviously it's evolution. It's not necessarily selective breeding because we're not directing that intentionally. It's sort of a byproduct of the poaching that's happening there.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. Either these countries in the East decide that traditional medicine isn't going to cut it, or we lose these animals forever.
Hold on a second, Morris. You are super hard to hear. Like you're walking away from your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, that's way better.
All right, good.
Are you closer to it, or do you have headphones? What are you doing?
I've got headphones, and one of them fell out, and I guess it was the one that had the microphone on that side.
Okay, it sounded like you just walked off. Like you were just like, "Yeah, man, if you're going to talk about elephants without me, I'm just going to bail." So, which is a different way to leave the show, but I respect it.
So what was the last thing you caught on my end?
We were talking about elephants and selective breeding. So a recap. We thought
so yeah, this isn't really selective breeding. It's kind of a product, an unintended consequence of traditional medicine. We'll just go ahead and leave it at that, right?
Yeah, but it's like a reverse selective breeding because like we definitely had an effect on it.
Yeah,
we're definitely causing this, like we did with but it's like selective breeding on crack. So it's evolution on crack, right? So it's happening in generations instead of
millions,
eons. Yeah, or even hundreds of years.
Yeah, well, and then I think we tend to think that evolution happens over the course of millions of years, and it does, but there's also evidence that it happens in much faster ways than what we previously thought. There are studies about fish in water systems here in the United States that are highly polluted, and scientists looking at the adaptations of the specimens they're pulling from these waterways now, and they're seeing that evolution and adaptation has influenced the current specimens being pulled in a way that ensures their survival in a heavily polluted water system.
What's your brother trying to say here?
With conservation, no matter what branch from ichthyology to mammalogy, Asians fix for traditional medicine or food is why animals are facing extinction.
Did you just look that up? That sounded like you read that out of.
Well, it popped up on as a comment here.
Okay.
I mean, that is an uncomfortable, and I don't even want to say truth, but that is a large driving factor behind some animals that are facing issues right now, is the need for animal products for dubious medicines.
Well, that, and I even think like like in Brazil, they're burning the rainforests for cropland, for palm oil, basically. Yeah, like one ingredient of stuff. So it's not just the animal. Like these other animals are dying off and possibly going extinct or being pushed that way for some shitty ingredient that isn't even, it's like a filler basically, or cheap oil. Like I don't even know what they use it for. Is it like
They use it in everything, man. It goes into pretty much everything from pharmaceuticals to cosmetics to food products. Palm oil is, and I hate to say it, but it's almost ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
which is crazy. Like why? I don't know. There's just too many damn people. So it just drives me crazy that for one ingredient to something, we're wiping out hundreds of thousands of acres of rainforest. So with no thought to the future or that quick buck, because it grows. It's a fast harvest. So, I mean, conservation's everywhere. Like even here, we wiped it out to pretty much the smallest populations of all time, like the wolves. The wolves in like Yellowstone area were almost wiped out. Or they basically were in Yellowstone. They were wiped out, right?
Yeah, they were wiped out, and then populations were reseeded into the area, and the amount of change that has happened over the course of these decades that these wolves have been reintroduced is amazing.
It's been like 15 years or something only, right?
And I can't remember the study off the top of my head. It hasn't really been that soon. I thought it was.
I think it was 15 or 20 years. It hasn't been that long because I think I've been married longer than the wolves have been, or I've known my wife longer than the wolves have been put back. What's this joke? There's a joke in China.
Okay, 25 years. There we go.
Is it 25? Okay.
25 years, 1995.
I know that they they were doing the study that the wolves being put back into the ecosystem changed the course of a river. The river was eroding because the deer were eating all the grass on the riverbanks because it was more succulent or whatever. And now that the wolves are there hunting the riverside, the river's much healthier. Like even the river's healthier because of these apex predators.
It's changing the way the environment, the physical environment, interacts with the living environment.
It's insane how every animal is a piece of that puzzle. And we're just finding out the levels now. Like in my lifetime, we're finding out the levels of complexity.
There's this wonderful meme. Are you a fan of memes, Josh?
It took me like 2 years to figure out what the hell a meme was. And my friends were explaining it to me. Like I'm 46. So like I was alive for the internet to be introduced. Like it didn't exist until I was like in junior high or high school. So memes took me a while. But yeah, I'm a fan of memes now to an extent.
Okay. So there's this wonderful meme, and it shows this stretch of waterway, and I think the stretch of waterway is from China or India or it's somewhere. And the caption reads, "We are," and I'm gonna go ahead and make this G-rated. "We are messing things up that can't be easily unmessed up."
Yeah, I mean we have
Absolutely.
So like they had to breed these wolves somewhere I'm assuming on a large property because they're still wild. But they had to give them protection somewhere else, then ship them to Yellowstone, which is insane. And luckily the buffalo are coming, or the bison. I'm sorry, American bison are coming back. Your brother made a joke about Chinese people eating so many turtles that we should switch from cattle farming to turtle farming, which honestly for the environment, that's huge. That'd be a huge improvement.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe.
I mean, come on.
Well, I'm looking at you. It sounds like I'm just wanting to disagree with you, but no, I'm thinking about it from an agricultural standpoint now. Like turtle farming eats up a ton of fresh water, and that water
That's
can't
true.
easily be funneled into a water system because when you're farming, you end up with a lot of diseases and
Waste products,
infection rates
diseases. Yeah.
that you wouldn't see in a wild ecosystem, and so you can't just funnel that water back into the river, right? You've got to hold it, treat it. But then again, if they're farming them in China, they doesn't really matter. There's not the same level of environmental protection laws in China and other parts of the world that there are in the United States and other places.
Well, and to be honest, like your brother makes a point too, that the point is that he's trying to make is that Asian turtles will be extinct. Basically, they'll go extinct quickly, which they kind of are.
Yeah.
So, but they have way more land than us anyway. Like, make a turtle farm. What are you doing?
I mean, sort of, right? A lot of it's not arable.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah, but still, I think in square footage, like they've got us, dude.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Eurasia, the supercontinent, is the largest landmass on the planet. And then if you want to cut it off at the Urals, which traditionally, culturally, is where you separate Europe from Asia, Asia's still massive. But the problem is most of that land isn't very good. You've
Is
got
that
the
why they
Gobi
just grow
Desert,
rice? Basically, because rice doesn't need a whole lot of nutrients, right? It's basically grass.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But I feel like there's got to be some way. Like, you're a soil guy with that crazy super soil that they found in the jungles.
Oh, okay. So that was made, right? That's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's man-made. That stuff's cool. Tierra, something. It's got a specific name, but yeah,
This is right in your wheelhouse. You should know how to make this stuff. You
I
have to
do
have the
know how to
recipe
make
on your
it.
fridge.
I do have this. I do know how to make it. Uh,
Okay.
Biochar, fish emulsion, micro ceramics, and compost. You got it.
Oh, all right. I'll get on that later. I feel like that would make great isopod soil. No?
Uh, it could, depending on the compost.
All right.
If
We'll
it's
have
a
to look
little
into that.
hot,
I don't know the chemical makeup. So,
it would be hot. It would be pretty hot. So hot
okay.
refers to the nitrogen content.
Yeah.
Be high in nitrogen just because of the fish emulsion and some of the other stuff that's going into it. But
Okay.
you set that up, you grow some plants on it, do that for a little while, then yeah, you got some great substrate base for isopods.
I mean, they like isopods process just all kinds of shit, literal garbage and chemicals and toxic substances out of our soil. So, isopods can save the world.
They would they I'm surprised more people haven't looked into them for bioreclamation.
Yeah.
Because they would be perfect for that, especially something like Porcelianitis pruinosis. They're already cosmopolitan in terms of range, right? They're everywhere except the Antarctic. They would
Okay.
You put them somewhere where there's something that needs cleaning, they'll do it. May take 10, 20 years, but that's the right way to do these kinds of things.
Right. Introduce that bioactive where it's from the ground up, because
Hey,
then that frass things.
That's my slogan.
From the ground up.
Bioactive from the ground up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And again, nobody else heard that, but he said bioactive from the ground up. I tried to put a little Texas on it. I don't think I did it.
Yeah, just think Sam Elliott saying bioactive from the ground up and you got it.
Bioactive, dude. I got you. Yeah, so back to I feel bad now. This is such a broad topic and we've touched on a ton of species. Because we could go on and on, like invasive species and all the crazy ways that we've affected the environments that we have literally invaded. So, but I just don't know how we get back to it. Like, how do we get back to just by being aware? Do you think like awareness is going to be enough to really help that out?
No, I really don't, man. Like you and I, obviously we're aware, and believe it or not, man, this is going to sound crazy because, coming from your kind of political persuasion, but hunters and these people in flyover red states, man, they are way plugged in to conservation. And
Yeah, I feel that's true.
yeah, and the reason is because these people have been living close to the land for generations.
Right.
So, when I was younger, man, maybe 15, 16 years old, and I first, started looking into the biology and the management practices as a hunter, and it blew my mind. It's it's simple because you're working with the systems that already exist as opposed to try and reinvent the wheel.
Right. And to be fair, I'm all for hunting if you're going to use what you take from the environment. So if you're going to eat that animal, if you're not a trophy hunter, I'm down. I'm down with the hunting. So, because you're using your stuff.
The vast majority of hunters too, man. Like,
I feel like it is too. I'm not anti-hunting, and that's where I'm pro gun ownership as well. So I don't want to get too political. I'm totally left, but I'm pro gun ownership if you're going to hunt with the gun, right? But I don't think you need a fully automatic weapon to shoot a deer.
Dude, let me tell you, nobody uses a fully automatic weapon to hunt. Like,
I know, but they use the excuse of hunting to own that weapon. But anyway.
But there are certain species, like here in Texas, we've got a huge problem with feral pigs. And so, like...
Oh, murder those.
I know people that hunt pigs with semi-automatic weapons. And there's no... I mean, yeah, you could use a bolt action rifle or a lever action rifle, and
that pig's going to murder you.
But we're trying to, and it sounds so bad. We're not even trying to exterminate, man. We're just trying to manage a problem that causes billions, not millions, billions with a B, worth of damage each year.
Well, and I feel like with all the droughts you guys are having in the South and the West, like there's feral pigs all the way out California. So like we don't have them.
They're everywhere. They're in everywhere.
Southern Illinois, we have them. We don't really have them where I'm at. I'm in Northern Illinois. We don't hear about it anyway. There's some boar up here, but that's like legit boar, right?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like just those like hogzillas that like bred with like escaped regular pigs and they get like 700 pounds. That's probably an overstatement, but
when pigs were first brought to this continent with the Spanish in the 1500s, and so they just kind of let them go because on their way back from wherever they were going, they'd be able to hunt pigs. And so you look at some of the population genetics between places like California, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, versus the populations on the eastern part of the nation, and you can actually see that there's genetic differences between the two based off of what kind of parent population those pigs came from.
Wow. I feel like almost some of those pigs are like indigenous now, almost like the environment has kind of adjusted to accept pigs for the most part.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, right? Because there is such a thing as a naturalized species, right? You brought up invasive species minutes ago. And when you say invasive species, most people think a big head carp, right? The Asian big head carp, these big, giant filter feeding fish that jump out of the water when they hear a boat motor and just go nuts. But there are naturalized species, things like the regular common carp, goldfish, koi, that are in every state other than Hawaii. Well, no, they're in Hawaii, but they're in every state, and they're not damaging the environment. They live within the environment. They just didn't evolve here.
Well, I feel like koi and stuff, they're for local fish like we have, their babies would be super easy to pick out and gobble up. Like that's something that can be managed locally, like by the other animals.
And
Like
yeah,
snakeheads are the other side of that coin.
right.
Like the snakeheads are, and like the clam, or what is it? The zebra mussels.
Zebra mussels.
Yeah, those are some piece of shit animals that we don't need.
They're wreaking havoc on ecosystems that they never should have been in.
Right, and we brought them on accident. Like America didn't have worms before we got here. So like North America didn't have earthworms as we know them. They had other like nematodes and stuff, whatever, but they didn't have like night crawlers. They didn't have red wigglers. Like they came in ballasts of ships. Right?
Yeah.
You were very silent. You were like, no, man, that's not it at all. But what else came over? You know, like we weren't keeping track of that.
And I was like, okay, yeah. But at first I was just like, where's he going with this? Sounds crazy. Oh, okay, yeah, they're in the ballast.
Like that stuff we brought over on accident, and it's been undoubtedly good for America. Like worms aren't bad. Like they're awesome for our soils, for our birds, for all that mess. But that's just one in a billion. But what else did we bring over here inadvertently? You know, like we didn't even know because we didn't care. Bats?
Rats.
Rats.
Cats.
Yeah, I didn't have rats.
Cats have been, man, you know, cats have been a major problem for every environment where they're not native, which unless you live in North Africa, they're not native. So
right.
It's they kill millions of birds, lizards, rodents, native, non-native, invasive, whatever, doesn't matter. They just kill them.
They're savages. And they invade every environment. Like they
absolutely.
I haven't seen any since I lived in like. Well, I see them in the city when I go to Chicago, but because they just kind of walk around like cats, like they don't care. They're like, oh, whatever, human. Like Pizza Rat, I'm sure, has a cousin in Chicago. But around here, like we don't see them. But I don't know why that is. I'm sure they're here, but they're secretive,
if you don't
right?
have them, you will.
I imagine they're here. I live in Joliet, Illinois. Like it's a suburb of Chicago, basically. Like we have rats. When I grew up on the other side of the river, we had rats in the neighborhood that they'd get in your garage and stuff. I never had one in a house, but I feel like you would need a pretty good size hole in your house to get a rat.
I caught one in my garage one time.
Caught it, or like saw it?
Caught it with my hands.
With your hands? Are you a maniac?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair.
So here's the story, man. I had my pond in the garage because when I had turtle, right? So you know turtle.
Yeah.
It was my little alligator snapping turtle back when I'd first gotten her. I had her in a little snap pool in the garage, and I go in there one day to just check on her, and there's this little rat drinking water out of the pond. And I went and picked it up, and I think it was somebody's feeder that had gotten out.
Okay.
Because this thing was super chill with being handled and picked up. Puppy dog tame, little rat. And his name was Splinter, and I kept him.
You kept him?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. We kept a mouse that my cat found, and he was fine. He was fine. The cat didn't want to give it up, obviously, but he wasn't named Splinter. He was just Mouse. I was shocked at how high they can jump.
Yeah, they got hops, man.
A wild mouse is no joke. Let's see. But back to conservation. So
sure.
There's so many. I mean, we haven't really left the topic because there's so many facets to it. There's us. There's pollution. There's over-harvesting. There's clearing ground for crops. So like the Blackfoot ferret is coming back because the bison are back because all these things are linked. Mm-hmm. You've got invasive species. You've got roads. You've got it just goes on and on. Like it's crazy. And we don't, I guess with human expansion, there's going to be some eggs broken, right? There's going to be some eggs broken for civilization. And I don't think.
I guess it's about managing the omelet, right?
Yeah.
It's managing the outcomes intended and unintended of our actions as the only species that changes its environment to suit its needs
Well, us and ants, right?
on a massive scale.
Yeah, yeah.
But and I guess that kind of brings up, the uh, whole ant thing. Like you've heard of the ants that are going to war on like three different continents right now.
It's four. It's four.
Four continents. Jeez Louise.
It's a super mega colony, and they're all basically genetically identical. So it's considered, they consider it a massive super colony because these ants, if say they have a colony over here and a colony over here, they're not like other ants. Like when they meet up, they'll be like, "Oh, hey, what's up, dog?" They're not like, "Oh, you need to die because you're a competitor with me." They're just like, "No, we're just going to make a big neighborhood now and murder everything else."
So is there a scientific term for that, like hyper-eusociality or something?
I don't know what you just said, but maybe. All I know is they called it like a mega super colony. It wasn't just super colony. It wasn't a mega colony. It's a mega super colony, which I felt sounded like an anime. I don't know.
Dude,
Mega super colony, go!
you can make almost anything better by putting super in front of it, right? Like
Yeah.
Super Nintendo,
Ooh.
Super Metroid,
They need Super Xbox. That needs to be the next Xbox.
Super Sega.
Microsoft, if you're listening, I'm an innovator. What is mus musculus? Is your brother smart too?
He's in college for biology, man.
Oh shit! I didn't realize he was smart too. I guess I should have assumed, but every family has a dummy.
Yeah, I'm
So,
the dummy, actually.
Wow. All right. Well, hey Henry, if you're listening, I'll be messaging you later to be on the show. So I like guests that make me look dumb. Oh, it's a house mouse. Okay. I didn't realize they cloned a Blackfoot ferret. What?
I guess they did.
I'm waiting for them to do that with the Javan rhino because they have the female, right? Because the male died.
I know the white rhino, there's only 2 females in the world left, so they're functionally extinct.
Well, they harvested the semen, and they're harvesting eggs from the females. So they're going to test tube babies, those guys.
They'll test tube baby and put it into like a
black rhino or something. I don't know. Whatever one is all over the place in all the zoos. I mean, they'll still be functionally extinct. Like, we'll have them in zoos, but that's about it.
Man, and I don't... zoos are wonderful because they do spearhead so much in conservation and protection of species, but like not all zoos are equal.
Oh, for sure. Like, I'm spoiled. We have 2 of the highest ranked zoos in the nation. We have Lincoln Park and Brookfield Zoo, and they're badass. Like, those are great zoos. But I've been to some zoos that are real turds.
It's like,
and then yeah.
It's a zoo, or is this just some dude's backyard? We've all seen Tiger King at this point, y'all.
Yeah. There's one in, we just went there. We try to travel and go to zoos wherever we go. So we went to, what the hell was it called? Michigan City, I think. I don't know. They had some weird mall there, and then they had this little zoo that we went to. And to be fair, they were trying really hard. They were really putting their best foot forward. But they just didn't have the resources. Like, they had some really cool exhibits, like the indoor beehive thing where you can see the bees and they have access to the indoors in a glass container, but then they can go outside, and they had beautiful gardens, obviously. But then they had a tiger in like the chain link setup. And it was decent, but that's a tiger. Like, I don't know, it was like 400 square feet or something. That's not tiger property.
There's more tigers in captivity than there are in the wild.
I believe that.
And that's actually an interesting little deal, right? Because some of the laws that exist in CITES, right, which is the governing legislation that controls endangered species and all that, these animals cannot be harvested or owned, but that doesn't apply to their hybrids. And so as a result, you'll have people with, well, this is an F2 Siberian Bengali tiger, and that's completely cool to hone because it's not a Siberian tiger, it is not a Bengal tiger, it's a tiger.
That's
That
crazy because I feel like those two would intersect, like their territories and their range would intersect. So there could be hybrids in the wild, right?
and there are examples of natural hybridization that happen, right? So like the one that comes to my mind is the growler bear or the pisley, right? Which is a polar bear hybridized with a grizzly bear, and
Yeah.
I mean they're sister taxa, so it works, right? I think they've diverged from each other within the last 100,000 years. So, there's about as much genetic difference between them as there are for like humans, populations of humans. They
Yeah.
they diverged right around the same time we started to.
So they're kind of traveled with us across the continental drift, basically.
Not necessarily. I mean just the separation between grizzlies and polar bears happened about the same time that Africans migrated out of Africa into Eurasia, and now we've got this big genetic diversity ball that we call the human race. It's
Yeah.
pretty much it happened along the same timelines that polar and grizzly bears did.
I wonder if they're the same, like, because humans are basically genetically identical. Like,
They're
it's weird. When you break it down far enough, it gets really weird. Like I've said it before on the show, like I happen to be a mix of like every white race on the planet. There's not a whole lot else in there, but like I have everything. Every Euro, Anglo-Saxon is just compiled into me. What was I reading? I was just reading something that like it just depends on where you're from. Like there could be a guy in Africa who I'm more genetically similar to than my wife, right? So,
well, I hope that you're not genetically identical to your wife.
Similar.
You want
So
to be
we're at
similar,
least
but not too similar.
We're at least both Dutch, so we at least both have some Dutch. But like that's where it just diverges, like different populations. So and then you find out that we have like people that are doing those genetic tests on themselves to see where they're from. Originally, is they're finding a lot of like weird little percents of Mongolian, and it's because of Genghis Khan. Like he did so much banging while he was going around the planet. Is like we're like I don't know, like 20% of the population of the planet has a little bit of Genghis Khan in them.
Well, and then too, you got to remember that 20% of the population of the planet pretty much lives in the area where Genghis Khan would have been doing his Khan thing, right?
Right.
So you look at the majority of like Han Chinese, you look at the Mongolian steppe people, obviously, you look at other populations, even up into Russia, and yeah, they're going to have genetic features similar to that of or from Genghis Khan because of his fecundity, but also because
nice.
But also because that's where the largest population of humans exists on the planet, right? You got 1.3 billion in China, 1.2 billion in India. So
Yeah, that's like almost half the population. It's a third of the population of the planet right there.
Yep.
Wow.
And then you've got and this is just the geography guy coming out of me. Africa is so unique, specifically sub-Saharan Africa. It was isolated from the rest of the world. People weren't crossing the Sahara Desert, man. They weren't.
No. Why would you?
Exactly. It's like, man, this is so dry. This is awful for my skin.
Yeah, it's like, dude, we have gazelles and shade over here. I'm not going in there. F that. There's not even a fruit tree over there.
It's just sand.
Yeah. Who goes in there? Nobody.
No, nobody does. But so as a result, the populations in sub-Saharan Africa experienced this wonderful sort of growth, this fractal patterning of evolution and diversity that occurred independently of the rest of the planet. It's the same with Australia, right? So the Aboriginals of Australia got there 60,000 years ago and genetically isolated for 60,000 years. You want to look into the past, look into the genetics of these people. You will find strings that lead to mysteries that tell you everything about our species.
Which is awesome. And yet we're systematically destroying the planet. Largely based on ignorance, willful ignorance.
Well, I mean,
which blows my mind. Like, willful ignorance is the biggest killer of everything on the planet.
You know, I think a lot of it too is unfettered capitalism, right?
It should be fettered for sure.
It should be, right? It's the whole Gordon Gekko greed is good. And
I don't even know what that is.
You've never seen Wall Street?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, Oliver Stone, like 1988, 89. Wall
All right.
Street's Charlie Sheen, his father, his father, and then Michael Douglas.
Okay. Well, yeah, it was in the 80s. Michael Douglas was in literally every movie in the 80s.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he had to feed himself.
For sure. And a couple other people.
Catherine Zeta. Well, she was later on, but
God bless. Like, to me, that is literally, don't tell my wife, that is the most beautiful woman objectively on the planet.
She's a good looking bird, that's for sure.
Yeah, I have zero genetics in common with her. Like, she's a different species.
Well, so. I don't know about that, man. Didn't you say that you were like everything from Western Europe? Pretty sure she's Welsh.
Yeah.
So
I mean, everything. And my mom just found out we're like, I don't know, she did some kind of study on like a Heritage 911 or something where she what nerd card in your face, what, dude? I'm getting crapped on by my buddy for not having seen Wall Street. I've also never seen a Bond movie.
Wait,
not ever. What's that?
You've never seen any James Bond movie?
Not one.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I feel like once I get in there's like 35 of them. That's a huge rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, but you watch one every evening before bed, you're done in a month.
That's fair. And then I could decide which one. I could actually legitimately decide the best Bond because I'm unfettered. I'm unchanged. I don't know. I really like Bronson. Is that right?
Pierce Brosnan?
Brosnan.
He was okay, man. He was all right.
I just love him totally. Like it doesn't have to do with him playing Bond, obviously, but I think he's just one charming SOB.
Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah, man. He's no Hugh Jackman, but he's up there.
Well, they've already had an Australian Bond, so George Lazenby.
Was that the latest guy?
No, that's Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's British, but George Lazenby was an Australian dude, and they had a contract misnegotiation with Sean Connery, and so they hired this Australian dude. Didn't even change his accent. Like, hey, g'day, the name's Bond, James Bond.
That's not a knife. That's not a Walther PP30. This is a Walther PP30.
Aye, too right.
My accents are really bad. Remarkably bad.
That's okay, man.
It's not good. But yeah, I guess until we get replaced by robots.
Oh, geez, that's a whole other can of worms.
Because education just isn't cutting it. Like, people are willfully, on purpose, ignoring science because it's inconvenient. Like, I don't want to agree with Al Gore. I'm not that blue, but Like,
I don't know, man. I tend to think of that, and this is going to get somewhat political a little bit, but I tend to think of them mostly as businessmen who are scapegoating the environment and climate issues in order to pad their pocketbooks.
I
It's
kind of
like,
heard that, but it's like that's been the argument among my wife's family. We argue a lot about everything political. They're very red, like red, for the most part. But like I tend to argue that because their thing is like, oh, there's all this money in green and the environment, and I'm like, oh, there tends to be more money in oil and pharma and all that stuff that's not.
you don't think they're in bed with each other?
It's possible, but I don't know.
Man, all of the corporations are all corporations are owned by a handful of people. And this is getting kind of conspiracy as opposed to conservatory, but
Hey man, we're trying to save the world on this show. We got to get into taking down the Illuminatis.
Eat less meat and pay more taxes to change the weather.
Here's the deal. Well, no, this is just talking about health. I would be down with charging the corporations taxes. Like, I'm down. Because I think they need to, and they could funnel those funds into trying to reverse or at least maintain our current status quo and how much pollution we're dealing out. So,
but that's not us, right?
It's not us.
The problem
it's not us.
Is that the solutions are not meted out equally.
Right.
So like every time there's a problem that is the current political problem du jour, the issue is we have to do this in our nation so that we are an example for other nations to stop. And that's not what's happening ever. Right? So
yeah, they don't follow our example, because otherwise there'd be like straight democracies across the planet. Yeah. And it's just not, because like objectively we're one of the most successful, like per capita rich nations on the planet as far as like owning stuff. Like if you just break it down to stuff and like real estate, like we're it. But wait, what were you saying? I lost track already.
So the thing is, like, we talk about what America's doing, what America has to do in order to, change the world. And we're not the problem. The 10 most polluted rivers in the world are not even in the Western Hemisphere.
But I think our straight product whoring, like we are product whores through and through. The Americans are awful. Like, I don't know what I would do.
Sure. Consumerism drives a lot of the issues that are happening
in the world,
in these areas. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's where
consumerism is an issue. Listen,
it is.
I sound like a Bernie bro.
Barely. I mean, I know where you're from, but you're making some connections, and I'm proud of you. I knew you knew these connections before you talked to me, but I'm proud of you right now. There you go. I do think we could protest with our dollar. I definitely do, but I don't think like my individual protest has enough to do with paper straws. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like
I carry straws with me. I carry those. They're awful too. They're really awful. Those extendable metal straws. They suck. They don't.
Some lady died
from what?
Straw.
What? From what straw?
From a metal straw. She died.
How?
She was like riding her bike with her cup with her metal ass straw, and she fell, and it like went through her skull.
Mine's collapsible. Like, I guess it could go through my skull or into my skull, but that was your time. Like that Final Destination movie. Like, something weird's gonna happen and kill you. Like, it's your time.
This woman loved the environment so much she literally died for it.
Not to joke about somebody's life, but her carbon footprint is 0 now. That's awful. That's awful. If you know this lady and you're part of her family, I apologize, but That's funny. That's funny right there. And it's awful at the same time. I totally admit that.
Yeah, no, I feel bad now. That lady deserved better than to be the butt of a joke on the internet.
On my crappy show, like, wow. Someday I'll be monetized enough to afford one of those straws. Someday.
I'll send you one.
I have like a dozen of them. So they're all over the place because you can't just bring them in and clean them all the time. So I probably have 5 dirty ones in my car right now. But they dishwash really well.
No, the trick is to get you one of those those steel cups, those vacuum cups.
Okay.
And never let it dry out.
The Yeti thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I like those, but they're like $40 or $50 for a cup.
Hey, they've come down. You can get knockoff.
Okay.
Right? Same technology because they let their patent lapse. So it's the same tech. You can get a vacuum sealed steel tumbler for $14.
Hey, you're a chemistry guy, right? You know chemical reactions and all that?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
All right, so this is nothing to do with our show at all, but you just reminded me of the metal cup. So my boss, we're at work. She has a metal cup that was issued to us by our bank. So it's a piece of shit. But it's a metal cup with our logo on it. And it's at room temperature. The cup itself is, right? Room temperature, I swear to God. So she puts ice in it. She has a rubber straw. She pours her water in. Water. All of a sudden, she realizes there's this thick stuff in there. She's like, what the hell? So she keeps pouring, and literal slush is filling the glass with slush. And the water was just like refrigerator cold. It wasn't like out of the freezer. And it literally slush piled up over the water level. And it just kept happening. Like, she just kept pouring it in. It hasn't happened since. We haven't been able to replicate this. But I swear to God it happened. So, and I don't know how it happened.
So what happens is when water is extremely pure,
okay,
like almost no dissolved solids, it can actually be chilled past 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. And it can be lower than the freezing temperature because there's nowhere for ice crystals to nucleate because that water is so pure.
So when it hits air, basically,
when it's agitated or when it comes into contact with ice, those particles,
those ice crystals have something to form on.
Have something to form upon. Yeah.
Now I'm going to replicate this experiment because this was super cool.
Just get yourself a bottle of like distilled water, throw it in the freezer, about 45 minutes to an hour, pull it out, shake it, and you'll actually see it start to slush all the way.
That's science, bro.
Yeah.
You people can take that to the bank scienced.
So I feel like this is where you have the audio drop where it's like Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Yes, science.
I need to get sound bites on here is what I need. It'd be that Jagoff shock jock, you know? Womp womp. Fart noises. I wanted to get them when I knew I was going to swear and hit a horn or something instead. Yeah, your brother agrees with us. The dollar doesn't do anything, but legislation might. I don't know. We got rid of so many regulations recently that would help with the environment and specific species that I worry. They haven't been reinstated yet, so I worry that they're going to be an issue. Like, because corporations don't care. They would just want to make $1, you know?
Yeah.
If they cared, insulin would be basically free, you know, or covered by your insurance instead of $700-800 a month.
Right. I think insulin for like type 1 diabetics should be free.
I feel like it should be free. Like, it's going to save your life. Like, come on.
But I mean, if you ate yourself into diabetes, like,
how do you like find that out though? I guess my friend is the type 1, like it's genetic, right? It's in his whole family has it basically.
Yeah.
He's like got the cyborg thing.
His insulin should be free. He should get a free pump that, you know, works off the solar cycles or whatever and pumps him full of life-saving insulin whenever he needs it. But like, if you're just, you know, if you're on my 600-pound life, like, come on, bro. Come on.
Also said, but funny. That's fair. I don't think they should have like a death sentence. Basically, I think it should be, at the very least, it should be like a quarter of the price.
Free tapeworms for the morbidly obese.
Oh man, that used to be a thing.
Yeah.
People took them on purpose to lose weight, get in that swimsuit.
Yep.
Yeah, I just think that's more politics though right now. I don't think it's politics myself. I think it's common sense, but yeah, I don't think they should be able to jack up the price on like that and EpiPens and stuff that people literally need to live. Like my medication, I don't think it should be as cheap as it is. Honestly, I think that like mood altering drugs and stuff like that is not.
You should write the manufacturer. Charge me more.
That I'm not going to do. Like
equity.
I mean, I'm excited that it doesn't. I don't know how they work. I don't know how big pharma works, but I went in to get my prescription from a new pharmacy, and they were like, "Oh, it's $94," and I was like, "Oh my god, that's a lot more than it usually is." And so the lady's like, "Let me look up a coupon." She's like, "Okay, it's $9." I was like, what? "Can I get a couple more of those coupons?" Like, what the hell?
Coupons, man, they really help.
Coupons for drugs. What are we doing? There's probably an app that collects the coupons for you. You just scan a QR code on your phone.
I used to use it. GoodRx.
Is it really? It's a thing?
GoodRx.
Christ's sake. Who even knows? What are we doing? What are we even doing anymore?
Well, I'll tell you what we're doing, man. We are wrecking things that cannot be rectified.
Not easily. Like, yeah, and we're privatizing too many things that ought not be privatized. I don't want privatized police.
Dude, we're gonna end up in like a libertarian paradise where
you think so?
Privatized police charge you by the second.
We can't even find a libertarian candidate that's not like a complete maniac or idiot or both.
Aleppo?
What's that?
What is Aleppo?
Yeah, exactly. And dude, I voted for that guy. Straight up voted for that guy. Because he was a better choice. In my opinion, he was a better choice. I'm like, you know what? He'll find some people in the State Department. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
It's all good, man. Like,
president can't do all the jobs.
There are better things to worry about than who is the face in the White House.
Right.
And I think we are absolutely touching on things that should be talked about, as opposed to what this one guy did in the White House or what this other guy did in the White House. We're talking about the permanent disappearance of species. We are talking about the permanent disfigurement of the planet that birthed us.
Yeah. And we don't get another one. Like, as much as they want to talk about Mars and whatever, I just watched a video about terraforming Venus, and that's kind of our best bet.
Venus would be better than Mars, but man,
but that would take 1,000 years. Like,
Edgar Rice Burroughs didn't write a book about Venus.
Sure didn't, or a series about them. But this is it. This is our one-stop shop. Like, you could get as many rich people as you want to put themselves in space, which, please, I hope it works. Please. Bezos and Musk, just get out there. Get out in space and leave us alone.
Dude, I like Elon.
We'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah, we'll talk about that off air. I like Elon, though.
Yeah, that could be a whole other episode where we decide to, yeah. I'm not super educated about Elon, but I know enough that I don't like him. But yeah, I think it's just so irresponsible. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I just have it ingrained in me. Like, I'm that guy that if I have 5 chips left in a bag, I won't eat them because then I'm out of chips. Does that make sense?
Wow, that is some pretty low time preference there, man.
That's weird, but it's like, that's the kind of mentality that I'm coming to the table with. But I shouldn't wait till we have 5 tigers left to worry about the tigers. You know,
makes perfect sense though, right? Like, think about you. I mean, you said it. You come from everybody in Europe. Europe literally survived an ice age because they were saving things for a later date.
Okay, I didn't know that, but that's dope.
Yeah. So low time preference, man. Saving things for later. You know, getting rid of instant gratification because I might need something at a later date. That's all survival adaptations for an ice age.
Right. Like we just cleared our pantry out because I had, those big ass bags of M&Ms.
Yeah.
So I had I still had ones that were like the strawberry peanut ones, which
that's
hands down the best M&M. Hands down the best M&M ever, and you can't get them.
They came out forever ago, so that's gross. They still had them.
Yeah, I had like 10 in the bag. Well, I was arguing with my wife. I'm like, let me eat them. She's like, I've been in this bag that's been opened at least 20 times. They're done. They're done. So she broke one in half and showed me that like the chocolate was like gray inside. Like it was bad. So
that candy shell ain't airtight, fellas. Just saying.
But I had 4 of those bags that had like 20 or less M&Ms in it, and I just wouldn't eat them because it was the end, and I didn't want to eat the rest of those M&Ms because like that's my, like we grew up dirt poor. I don't know if that's where that came from, like that instinct or that desire to hold on to those last few, but I just can't do it. But that's my stupid conservation analogy. Like if we could get that mentality before we're down to 5 M&Ms or 5 chips or 5 tigers. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't even have 5 white rhinos left.
We got 2.
And they're huge. Like, we couldn't lose track of them. But, like, to be fair, we were wiping out species before we even had guns.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the megafauna that lived here in America, in America, like, we wiped out how many mammoths, giant sloths, the dodo. Yes, well, the dodo kind of was asking for it.
Yes and no, right? So part of the megafaunal extinction at the end of the Pleistocene was because of climate change. And
did it just get too warm from too fast?
Too warm, too fast, not enough predation, keeping numbers in check, right? So that's another big issue, right? You touched on it with the Yellowstone elk eating the river and eating the grass by the river and screwing it up.
Well, the disease runs rampant in their populations, or it did.
Exactly. And it's the same thing that happened to the bison. Everybody likes to say that, when Europeans came to America, they killed all the bison. Yeah, we did do that. But this population was on a precipice, tipping towards extinction already because there was not enough predation happening on them.
Well, the thought of that's something I would have loved to see in my lifetime is like that. I don't know. The only time I ever saw like an inkling of it is in that Dances with Wolves, where there's just an ocean of bison running across the plains. Like as far as you can see, it's just bison.
Right. And I think that image is kind of a romanticized idea that we have when we think of the Old West, right? The westward expansion into frontier. And that's sort of romanticized because the reality is you've got millions of animals each eating pounds upon pounds of forage each day.
Yeah.
With just an unsustainable population size. And diseases are running rampant. You're ending up with animals that otherwise should have died because of predation that are surviving because there's no pressure on them. And it became an issue. It's the same thing with the passenger pigeon, right? There were flocks, millions strong, that would blot out the sky, and there was just too many of them. So when you had a pressure from people shooting at these massive flocks with a shotgun, they tanked because they were already on that tipping point of, well, we're too many. It's kind of counterintuitive, but there were too many to fail. They were too big to fail because they had to fail.
But like, if we were cutting down the population that much, at some point it's got to be like, oh, okay, we're going to be all right now.
Well, that's the thing, right? you do it, but you do it in a managed way, right? It's the same with deer hunting across the country. You have bag limits. You're only supposed to take, certain percentage of males versus females.
Right, and they do
And
the surveys to tell you how many you can have a year per permit,
exactly.
and
And
yeah,
so that kind of game management really didn't become a course of study until much later. And so it wasn't willful ignorance, it was just ignorance. He
well,
didn't.
that's back in the day. I'm talking about willful ignorance now.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many people that just ignore science or go like, "Oh, we've been fine so far," and it's like, dude, in the last what? I don't even know. When I was born, we had like 5 billion people on the planet or something, and now we're pushing 8.
Well, here's the funniest thing, right? Like, it took humanity 200,000 years to get to uh, a billion, right?
Yeah,
Probably more like 3 billion. 200,000 years to get to 3 billion. And we've added 5 billion people in the last 150, 200 years. Most of it really at the tail end of the Industrial Revolution.
yeah, that's when it really kicked off. Like, because we had all that stuff, we could mass produce medicine, housing, weapons, all the things that we need, like pots and pans, soap. It was insane. So all those things to ensure longevity and lifespan and the ability to at least live till you had babies. Crazy, crazy, and that's great. Like, I don't want anybody dying, and as a baby or something. But I think we need to use common sense, and maybe not try to have so many kids. We have the option.
Well, and again, that's not developed nations that are having too many kids, right? You look at population numbers or the reproduction rates of any developed nation in the planet, they're all below replacement rates.
Yeah, America's in a
Every
problem now.
single post-industrial nation on the planet is below replacement rates.
Right.
The massive population growth is coming from really two places: India and sub-Saharan Africa.
And I mean, they kind of have the space for it. India's running out.
India does not have the space for it. Sub-Saharan Africa has the space for it, but the problem is we don't have the food for it.
Right. Unless you want palm oil. Unless you just drink down some palm oil, then you're good.
Okay, it'll get you where you're going. It ain't going to be very good, but it'll get you there.
I wonder if they could use that pulp for something. So it's just at least use it for something else.
Set it on fire.
Right? Like, could we use it for paper? I'm sure the palm oil barons are figuring out what else they could do with it.
Or not.
Yeah, maybe they don't give a shit.
It might be too expensive to
process.
Yeah.
Unreal. Like, I feel like all the other things we do, like we repurpose all the waste from our livestock into dog food and cat food and whatever, even though gelatin for sure. So yeah, I knew a vegan girl who ate Jello that I never told her, like, hey man,
that's cow bones.
Hey man, just so you know, you're not vegan. Yeah, but I mean, even that, like, we still use it. We still use almost all of that stuff. Chicken blood is fertilizer, like,
yeah,
all that stuff.
Industrial nations are pretty good at utilizing all of the raw material, right? So industrial farming, yeah, it's bad, but we still make sure that even the hoofs, right, are used for something.
Yeah,
and
glue and dog treats and all that.
Exactly. But in other parts of the planet, and dude, this is so funny. You watch it on like Mark Weems on YouTube, right? And he talks about how amazing it is that they're utilizing all of these parts of the animal. And it is sort of interesting that you can make food out of that part, but and of course, through this Western lens that I look at most things with, it's like that piece of that animal would be have more utility as this as opposed to just nutrition.
Yeah, that's possible too. Well, and we actively push down stuff we can use for more. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but like hemp. When my pothead friends tell me the uses for hemp, and then you research it, you're like, what the hell? Why aren't there just acres of this stuff out there? Like, not for the pot.
That's starting to change, right? That's starting to change. You had the Farm Bill from 2018 that legalized all products derived from hemp. And so
I didn't know that. That's dope.
Yeah, thank you, Trump.
Settle down. He's a face, remember? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, he's just a face. No, I'm just Josh.
He's a face I want to punch, but he's a face. Like, what? Whoa. I didn't say that. Secret Service, I didn't say that.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, man. Like I said, it's you got to take the good with the bad, and I think when it comes to conservation, you're going to take good and you're going to end up with a whole lot of bad, because everything has an unintended consequence. Things you
we're at the point now. I feel like we're at the point now where we're going to try to slap Band-Aids on, and we don't know. Like, we don't know what the Band-Aid is going to do.
You put the Band-Aid here, and then that causes too much pressure in the system, and now you've got a dam collapsing.
Right. Like, you have rats on your island. You have an island village. Let's say you're Guam, right? You have rats show up, and they decimate the bird populations, right? So you bring in cats to kill the rats. And now you have too many cats because they're eating the rats and the birds. So you bring in dogs to get rid of the cats. And it's like, where does it end? Where does it end?
Lady who swallowed a fly.
Yeah, exactly.
She swallowed a fly. Perhaps she'll die.
It's like an idiot. You have to replace the apex predators to make it feasible. And all the way down. Like, I mean, you have to have your microfauna too. Like, it's all, I don't know, I hate to be that guy quoting the Lion King, but it's that circle of life. Like, it's all there.
Dude, everything is connected, man. Like, the circle of life is perfect because it's a great song. But everything absolutely is connected. And not just on this planet, right? Like, we are on this planet. The planet is in the universe. And so we're in the universe physically, but the universe is also in us atomically, right? We're carbon-based. Carbon is formed in the heart of a star. Our blood is made out of iron. Iron is the heaviest element that can be formed in the heart of a star. We are literally stardust.
Bro.
I know, right, man?
We need to get some of that hemp over here, bro. Is it 420?
720.
Hey, it is. Holy cow. I'm going to be 47 in like 2 months.
Oh, nice.
Speaking of conservation, I'm going to start a Patreon to conserve myself. I don't have diabetes yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm not doing anything to avoid it, but my blood sugar is always way down. Anyway, that's HIPAA violation right there.
No, because it's you. You volunteered that information.
I feel like you forced it out of me. I was coerced.
Okay.
I don't know how, but we'll review the tapes later, and I'll find a way. Yeah, I'm all for frivolous litigation. As long as it gets me free substrate, I'm good.
All right.
I actually have some litigation against somebody for this right here.
Oh,
so,
snap.
Yeah, that was a whole thing.
I got to ask about that.
Nobody does. And I'm like, dude, it's a black eye. I haven't had a black eye in years. Yeah, I may or may not have gotten jumped in a Walmart parking lot for some stuff that I said. So my mouth wrote a check that my ass couldn't cash. So
you can tell me about that off air.
Yeah, I might. So anybody who's interested and hasn't heard the story already, you know, it's kind of interesting. It was fun. It took me back to my younger days. But it also reminded me, like, old people shouldn't fight. Like, after a certain age, just don't do it anymore, because the first thing you think about is your deductible. But yeah, so anyway, conservation is good. Look into it, see what you can do locally. See if there's a charity that you trust. Definitely research them because there are some really shady ones out there. Look into a charity that you can trust, that you think is good and going to do some good in the world. Do your research. Do your homework. Pick better products. But obviously I don't want you paying $12 for a gallon of milk. See if you can help out your local farmer, your farmer's market, those sustainable places. Well, I hope they're sustainable, but those small guys, see if you can do local. It's better for you. It's better for your allergies. It's better for your kids. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Morris.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all been conspicuous consumers. It's time to be inconspicuous consumers. You should take it upon yourself to know where your dollar is going, what your dollar is buying, and how that dollar is later on used.
Yeah, do your homework. Do a little bit of homework. I could be better at it. I challenge everybody in ISO Buddies and on this channel to try harder and hold yourselves accountable, because we need to. We need to. It starts with us, right? It can snowball.
Look, it may not be for your kids. It may not even be for your grandkids. But somewhere down your genetic line, your relative is going to be affected.
Yeah. Somebody. Even if it's not your relative, somebody. You can make a difference in somebody totally unconnected to you's life. Why not do that? Why? For a little bit of inconvenience for yourself. Well, why not do that?
That sounds hard. I'd rather just do it if I know that like my great-great-grandson or something's going to be like benefited from it. So
eat catfish raised in Oklahoma. Okay. Henry's got some good advice.
Yeah, he's right.
Catfish raised in Oklahoma, the only truly sustainable fish operation.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
I do like some catfish. I could stand to eat more of it.
Yeah, so most fish farms in the world are like awful, to be completely honest. Remember we talked about the turtle farm? Like, yeah. You're talking about an aquatic environment where you can't not social distance, right? Because you're literally in the same medium.
Right.
And so fish farms are awful. But the ones in Oklahoma, and I know which one he's talking about, that thing is legit.
That might be worth a field trip to go check them out.
Well, shoot, dude, if you come down to Okie, I'll go up north and I'll meet you there.
That might be worth a trip. I got to wait till my daughter's a little older. When she's staying over at her boyfriend's house, because that's all cool now, I guess. So, hey, if I could have more time to myself, whatever. What's that?
Oh, no, I was just saying, and he's in Oklahoma?
No, he's not, but I could get her out of the house, and then I could take a little mancation for a day or two.
Gotcha.
If this channel's still going, we could do a on-site. That reminds me, I need to contact a pet store guy. But yeah, I just think we could all do a little bit more, and I guess that's so cliche, but it's still so true. They were teaching me that when I was in grade school, back in like the early 80s. And I'm sure they were teaching it before that. Like, climate change and global warming is not a new thing. It's not 20 years old or 25 years old. It's from like the 60s.
Well,
so,
I mean, here's the thing, right? So they change the words every so often because their claims aren't coming true. So I'm suspicious of it.
But they didn't. Like, those terms were around since the 60s, dude.
But in the 60s, not in really the 60s, in the 70s, it was Ice Age.
Yeah, I remember the Ice Age scare.
And then in the 90s, it was the ozone layer. And then
which was a thing.
And that happened, but guess what? It got better.
It did.
And then in the 2000s, it was global warming. And then things kind of petered out. And now it's just climate change.
Global warming started in the late 90s, I think, because the Bush administration, George H., his administration changed it to climate change because it was global warming was like too scary. So now it's back to it's just climate change, but they're two different things. But if we could fix the ozone layer, that's just a thing. We did that in like 20 years. Basically, I mean, it's still a sizable hole, but it's like a tenth the size of what it was. And that's just because what we outlawed chlorofluoromorodorocarbons. Yeah. And that was like one chemical basically that we got rid of. Like, if we can do that, well, I guess the flip side of that is we only had to really outlaw one chemical. So, or cut way back on it. So that's just one chemical. It's not the 10,000 Legos that fell over in the last 100 years that we need to put back together.
It'll be cool, man. We're supposed to head into a solar minimum, so we'll see how that turns out.
Oh, to help cool things off a little bit?
Yeah, it'll cool things off a little bit. It'll make things in areas that are usually dry. It'll make things a little bit wetter there. So it'll be cool. We'll see what happens.
I hope so. I also came up with a solution. Here's another little solution for global warming. So the ice caps are melting, right? So that offers, at the very least, like, I'm not even getting into like the rising seas or any of that. But the ice caps are white. That reflects sunlight back away from the earth. Yeah, so that keeps temperatures down. So them being gone, the ocean around them is dark, so it absorbs that heat. So that just makes it hotter in general, globally. Paint parking lots white. How much square footage do we have in parking lots?
A lot.
Yeah. The roofs of all of our factories and buildings, white. What? The white paint, I want to buy stock in white paint right now and then just kick that off. That's literally the littlest thing we could do, and it would make such a change.
You heard it here first, y'all.
Yeah. So,
paint.
Copyright, trademark.
Benjamin Moore. Just buy stock in Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams. You'll be all right.
Yeah, latex. You got to use latex. So, I don't know what'll melt.
Latex will melt for sure.
Ah, shit. Well, don't use latex, then. They could use that white gravel that people use for fish tanks that they shouldn't because it looks stupid.
They do that on certain buildings, especially in climates where it's hot.
Yeah.
So, like, around my neck of the woods, they'll do tar paper.
They spread that white gravel up there, right?
Put white gravel on it, yeah.
Yeah, because then they did that thing with the bio balls.
In Cali, where they tried to do something with that reservoir or whatever, but it backfired. Yeah.
Did it backfire? I didn't read that part. I don't even remember what the bio balls were for because they're black. So what were they supposed to do?
I don't even remember. I just remember that it didn't end up well.
They were supposed to offer shade to something. I just saw a video where a guy filled his pool with bio balls to see if he could swim through them. He kind of did it, but it didn't really work. All right, I think that's it. We're over time. We're not really rambling. All these things are connected. This is such a huge topic.
Yeah, there's a lot of meat left on this bone. So if people want like a part 2, I'm more than willing to help out.
I think we might have some stuff because I seriously, the next month of guests either aren't verified or I barely remember them being cool with coming on. So next week we have Tanner Stainbrook. Actually, Morris, thank you so much for coming on. You literally saved me from just showing around my dirty, gross basement. I really appreciate it. As a friend and a host of a show, I appreciate you coming on at last minute. So this was a great topic. I think this was, I always say this, but I think this was another one of my best episodes. And you were one of my best guests. So, and crying out loud, Henry was one of the best viewers we've had. So like and subscribe, Henry. You'll be like number 104, I think. That's got to mean something. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, Morris. And Permian Exotics for all your substrate needs, folks. Okay? There's multiple levels. Talk to Morris. He'll let you know what you need for your livestock. Right? Or your plants. You have special plant growth stuff too, don't you?
Well, I mean, it'll grow plants.
All of them will?
Yeah, all of them will. All of them. Other than the black, man. Other than black, all of my substrates are great for plants.
What do I have? I have black for this isopods, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so don't grow plants with your isopods, which They're going to be kept dark, so don't do that anyway. That's real stupid. So on that note, Morris, have a great night, and hopefully I see you in chat afterwards.
Yes, sir.
All right, bud? All right. Peace. For those of you that are still watching or watching later and found us somehow, apparently we reach out to all kinds of people on the internet. We have a lot of, I don't remember what they call it. Our videos get petered out somehow more than they should. So hit the like, hit the subscribe, share the page with your friends. If you're interested in any of these conversations, like we've had so many great talks with so many great people. For God's sake, go back and watch, I think it was episode 20 with, I can't even think of his name. I'm the worst. The guy from the Learning Zoo. Drew Schultz. That video criminally only has 20 views. That's ridiculous. It's awesome. That video had some great animals, great conversation. You learn how to run a zoo, for crying out loud. What else do people want? Go back and watch that video. It's long. It's long, but it's good. 20 views is criminal. That's the only one that bothers me, the low views. After you're done watching that, watch Chris Biggs. That guy's a maniac. We didn't really have a topic because he kept getting off topic on purpose. Other than that, I hope you liked this episode. I had a lot of fun with it. I know it went a little long. Again, hour and a half seems to be my standard now. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much. I appreciate it every